For many, many decades, the two-party cartel in the United States has remained virtually the same. It's Democrats, it's Republicans. They keep each other in a balance, a 50-50 roughly balance. And sometimes the Democrat in the White House, sometimes the Republican. Sometimes they have the majority in the Supreme Court and so on. Nothing has changed. Not even the internet could change that. It didn't really make any sort of dent into the cartel. So you saw a lot of new shows, you saw podcasts getting more viewers and listeners than traditional television stations, but still, it's the same party cartel. So for example, you had the conspiracy media, which became quite successful, but at some point, even conspiracy media became pro-Republican and pro-Russia and pro-Trump and all that. And some of these platforms, they basically became a running commercial for certain parts of the Republican Party. And then you saw guys like Joe Rogan, who does mostly entertainment stuff, but also some political stuff. And he draws in so many millions of listeners and viewers. Yet when it comes to voting, when it comes to the actual political system, he's just being pragmatic and says, well, vote Republican, because for the last couple of years, the Democrats, they're more overbearing. They just want to make all kinds of stuff illegal and ban this and ban that. So they just vote Republican. But that doesn't really challenge the system. And even other influencers that came along, such as Russell Brand, he was a guest on Joe Rogan, and he said things like, well, it's, the pharmaceutical industry, and they profit from disease and hype, and the military industrial complex, they profit from crises. So, this is a moral hazard, it might be some foul play. I mean, yeah, we knew that 20 years ago, and people knew that 40 years ago and 50 and 60 years ago. We have to have a more advanced understanding, and these popular new internet era influencers, they need to start challenging the two-party cartel. They need to hire people if they have to really understand how the system works. So it's only the population that is divided, and people, average taxpayers, hating each other. It's not really the upper class that's split and fights among themselves. So now we have the lawsuits against Fox News by these voting computer manufacturers, Dominion and Smartmatic. And the internal communications say, well, Fox didn't really believe what they put out on air. They weren't really happy with it, but they were concerned with ratings and the party, the Republican Party. And now Tucker Carlson at Fox has put out a compilation of the most boring clips they could find of the January 6th incident. So they pick boring footage and they cut it together and they try to say, look, it wasn't a big deal. So there's suppressed footage or whatever, and this was all just misleading, and the Democrats are guilty, and this was all just a big cover-up. So it's those people that went into the Capitol that are the victims, and right-wingers are the victims, and the Republicans are the victims, and Trump is the victim. That's kind of the message. And people on social media try to hype this up as sort of a sensational report, but of course you got immediate backlash. The Capitol Police Chief responded and said, look, when you see inside the Capitol some police officers not engaging this QAnon shaman, or just not engaging these people in there all the time. That was for a reason, because there was not enough Capitol Police, and it made no sense for 3 police officers to fight this Q guy, Jacob Chansley, and risk injury and risk a bigger fist fight, against more demonstrators, against more people in the Capitol. So they were just waiting for reinforcements. The priority was to calm people down and then to clear the building. And so this is what the Chief of Capitol Police now said, and this is also what has been quoted by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Republican. And he said, well, this is the explanation. And we've seen this in HBO documentaries and other television pieces. There were just, you see people from that day saying there were too many folks in the Capitol, and it made no sense for police to fight them all, right? And the facts are pretty clear. Lots of arrests were made after the fact. So after these people were identified by video evidence and all sorts of things and statements to police, they went to these people and arrested them, charged them, and the whole 9 yards. So this is basically what happened. And many of those people that went into the Capitol, they believed the hype. They believed Trump was going to save them. They believed that the election results were phony and they will be overturned and that sort of thing. They were part of a big revolution, but they were left hanging out to dry, right? This was a big Trump publicity stunt, and there was no real follow-up. So these people felt betrayed, and because they were betrayed. And it wasn't just Fox News saying all this stuff. It wasn't just Trump saying all this stuff. There were former generals saying this stuff, and psych warfare guys on different podcasts and radio shows and internet shows claiming that something huge was going to happen. The leftist deep state was going to be arrested, and the Democrats were all going to be arrested, and that sort of stuff. And of course, that didn't happen. It's a two-party cartel. You have to understand what that means. Now, back in the day, conspiracy buffs understood that. They realized it was a two-party cartel that, it's just made to keep people fighting and to string them along. 4 more years, 10 more years, 20 more years, 30 more years. It's always the same. The system doesn't change. And back in the day, conspiracy buffs at least challenged this, and they warned of the two-party cartel. But as we know, even the conspiracy buffs were then turned by the Republican Party, and especially during the Trump years. And now many of those influencers from back in the day, they're pro-Republican because that gives them the attention, that gives them the clicks, that gives them the money. And this is a big problem. So we're going to see how these lawsuits pan out. Fox News against Dominion, I believe also Smartmatic, the voting machine manufacturers. And internal communications have been produced during this lawsuit. And it's all a bunch of Fox executives and producers and Fox hosts saying, well, this stuff is crazy, what's being put out, and we don't like this, but we built this audience. We don't want to lose this audience. We don't want people to go over to Newsmax and OAN, and we're hoping this Trump hype will die down and we keep all these supporters, we keep all this, we keep the ratings up. And that was basically the culture at Fox. Now, it's not exactly clear how much Fox is going to lose in that lawsuit, how much money. The suit states they want, I think it was $1.6 billion in damages. Now, that sounded crazy just a year ago maybe, but after the Alex Jones fiasco and those lawsuits, now he owes about $1.5 billion. And key to this was the intentions and kind of the legal definition of reckless behavior. So if you lie on purpose to gain followers and money, that's really bad for you. And if you really don't make an effort to check whether the things you say are true or not, if you really don't bother because, saying certain things makes you more money, that's also really bad for you. And there's all sorts of legal, definitions and thresholds. And if you trigger those thresholds, these things will get much, much worse for you. So it's easy to understand how a two-party cartel works, but emotionally and mentally, it's hard to it's hard to deal with that truth that there's no big party to save you, that there's no powerful big money structure to fight for your interests. And this is ultimately what this is about. Even when it comes to the left and the Democrats, we've seen this over and over again, that there's not too much difference between those two parties when it comes to the essential politics. So you shouldn't trust these television stations, left or right. Even when there's a hype, and when there's a new hype about Ron DeSantis or whatever, or when there's a new war, or when there's a new big crisis, you shouldn't really trust these television stations. You shouldn't trust these two parties. And you have to be careful as well with these influencers on the internet or on the radio, because some of them are outright crazy. A lot of them are sellouts, and many, they don't really understand what they're talking about. Because when it comes to politics, it's not like a regular science, right? There's a lot of superficial fluff out there, and people think they can understand all kinds of difficult topics just with their ideology. So you have a basic ideology, and that answers all your questions, and you can explain everything, but that's really not the case. You can find some really interesting material on the two political parties and the superpowers themselves. You can find that on candorintel.com and our YouTube channel.